Stephen Skinner is UK CEO of HB Reavis, which has a pipeline of over 1 million square feet of offices in Waterloo, Clerkenwell and Hackney. So I thought it'd be useful to ask him what he thinks of the future of office space post-pandemic. So Steve, I mean, you talk about the suggestion that physical space will be used to build trust and culture, and we'll be using VR for virtual meetings. Does that mean that actually location becomes less, or does it actually become more important?
I think from my point of view, the location becomes even more important, and there's some obvious parts of that, which is around transport, because I think people right now are very worried about using transport. So I think that the closer we are to some of those large transport nodes in central London, the better. But I actually think when it comes, but one thing I think we forget as people who live or work in London is actually how well connected London is as a location. We have 5 or 6 major national, international train stations. We've got a tube network that you can walk onto a platform at any time of day and get a tube to where you want to go. So actually, I think as a city, we're really well connected. And I think sometimes we underestimate that. I think what's going to be more important in terms of location is actually what happens in that location. I think what happens in the location will become a real driver of your why you're going to go there. Why am I going to spend my day going to my office or my workplace or my HQ? Levels of amenity. Is there a gym, the retail, all the other things which happen outside of the physical space you work in? I think that's going to be the key point on location.
Yeah, well, it's interesting where people should do their work. I actually interviewed Norman Foster last week, and they did a survey of their people working in their office. They found it's about 80% of normal performance because people were at home. And I know you've written about expecting AI to boost employee performance, and the future of your Bloom building in Clerkenwell, that will use, you've got a special app which is called what, Symbiosis.
Yeah.
How does that all work? How do you create more efficiency by getting people into the office?
So Symbiosis is really our kind of digitized workspace tool, which is really there to support your kind of physical experience of being in the office through data. So how it works is we actually create a 4D model of your workspace, so you can see it digitally, and then by using both environmental and positional sensors, we then can provide data for 3 main reasons. The first is really the environmental quality of the space that you sit in. So the air quality, the temperature, the humidity, and so you can change that on a minute by minute basis. We can then really show you how that space is being utilized. So certainly when we look at how we evolved out of the pandemic, you can really track density, who's using space, when, and where. Excuse me. But then we can really show you how the space is being utilized, and part of it is we take that data or that digitized information we have, and we sit down and we play it back to potential tenants and show them, are they being efficient with their real estate? Do people actually want more collaboration space? Do they actually prefer going to larger meeting rooms, smaller meeting rooms? And then the third thing is then, we use that to support business going through any kind of change management. So, we can really show people through using the data how people are interacting or collaborating, and does the physical space they've designed support that or not?
And so I guess that helps with the flexibility of offices, and you've talked about greater flexibility in the way offices operate. Does that mean we're likely to see greater focus on retrofit rather than new build, do you think, in the future, and particularly in light of zero carbon targets?
I think I would slightly separate those 2 points. One is obviously, and I'll deal with the carbon point first. I think as an industry, clearly it seems that we have a much greater understanding of carbon, and it's very high up on people's agenda. My comments on that would be, I think we need to be better at focusing on the embodied carbon in the kind of contribution of new buildings, and not just zero carbon in operation. And I think we need to be less reliant on the use of offsetting as opposed to delivering low carbon buildings, because I think just by using offsetting, we don't actually get the end result that we want, which is a lower carbon environment. As far as retrofitting goes, I don't think there's any reason why we shouldn't or can't retrofit buildings, as long as it's really capable of being able to deliver the workspace that we need, that we see a need for in the future. If the bones are good enough, for the building, we can provide great workspace. Why not?
But you have a big new build project on at the moment, One Waterloo. That's sort of flagship scheme, I guess. Can you tell me more about that and its likely progress? Because other developers have tried that before you, haven't they? And they didn't do too well.
Okay, so how long have I got? I could probably speak for 5 hours about Waterloo, and you can see it here in my office as my, it's almost like my trophy, the scheme we got consent for. So yeah, as you said, it's our flagship project. Essentially, for people that don't know, we will redevelop all of the existing buildings and land which run immediately adjacent to Waterloo Station, looking towards the river. We have a resolution to grant consent for a 1.3 million square foot scheme, which we think will deliver some of the highest quality and sustainable workspaces. As part of the redevelopment, we'll deliver 3 new significant street level areas of public realm. We'll deliver a 1 acre public garden, 10 meters above street level, connected directly from the platform level at Waterloo to your office reception. We'll deliver another 1.5 acres of outside terracing. We have the largest end of trip facilities in any building in London, with over 2,500 bike spaces. We'll have a 60,000 square foot amenity floor with outside terrace, and we're going to have a significant amount of kind of creative and affordable workspace and retail. And then we're working on some other kind of really, I'd say, cool ideas, such as sky farms. So we're trying to make it a really significant and exciting development for London. In terms of progress, we're in the process of closing out the section 106. We've actually achieved vacant possession. We've completed the soft strip works, and actually we're just going through the process of agreeing all the very technical third-party agreements we need to be able to start the demolition. So subject to when those are agreed with those third parties, we'll aim to be on site with physical works by the end of this year. So end of next year.
So in terms of looking at your pipeline, as it were, and with the view at the moment that looks like we're going to be sort of out of the worst of the pandemic by April, I think is what is being said at the moment. Do you feel that by the time you've completed a scheme like that, we'll be, might say, back to normal and the economy back on its feet again?
I think Waterloo, the size and the scale, the complexity of it, because people who've had a historic involvement in the site will know it's very, from a construction point of view, it's almost a civil engineering project before you actually start doing normal property development. We have a 100-meter area where we cannot pile, so essentially we actually construct a bridge, hang the building off the bridge, and then carry on up. So it will take us between 5 and 6 years to complete that project, by which I would expect that we are back to some level of quote normality, certainly in terms of demand, which is where we're really struggling for at the moment. In terms of how people will use office space in the future, I think it's very difficult at the moment to predict what that end state will look like when essentially the vast majority of people haven't been using an office. Many will spend 12 months not going to an office at all. And I think so the majority of both individuals and companies have got no idea what they will need in the future, because no one's been back. And you hear people saying they never ever want to go back to the office, and I get harassed at the school gates from parents of my kids saying, can I sneak them a pass to our co-work because they can't spend another minute at home? So I think the ultimate end state of offices remains really really variable. I think some positives that will come from it will be, there'll be a shift from the employer to spend time to really understand what the employee needs on an individual level to support, what is their kind of best way to be productive, the best way to be successful, and that'll be an individual approach based on your own personal circumstances. So I think the end result will be, we'll focus on the big themes: flexibility, well-being, service, technology, greater variety of spaces for people to use in buildings. And I think ultimately, you know, the overall quality of places people do work, not necessarily just an office, places people do work, will dramatically improve over the next, you know, 1 to 5 years, with a real focus on the benefits to the individual of going to that place to do work. You know, answering the big question of why am I going there? We'll get much better at that, in my opinion. In a pan-European context, we really believe in London for the same reasons we did before. I think London will be a key market for actually expansion for us. As you see, you know, we acquired a new project just before lockdown, so London will remain a key focus for our business. I think the feedback from our customers, which is what it's really all about for us, is they all still want to have, you know, if they're not based in Europe, when they come to Europe, they'll all want to have an office here. If they're here, they want to stay here.
Very good. Well, that's good news. Glad to hear an optimistic point of view about the future of cities right at the moment. And Steve, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Peter. Bye.